Now, if you have been trying to cancel your TV license without success, this week's Consumer Talk is for you. We have been speaking about this problem for as long as I have been on air. Wendy Knowler, welcome back. Always lovely to have you with us. How difficult it is to extricate yourself from the clutches of the SABC.
Yeah, in a word, very. You may recall that towards the end of November last year, we spoke about this vexing issue. How to successfully cancel your TV license. That is in a way that the SABC deems to be acceptable. So many people have just sent an email to the SABC informing them of their intention to cancel their TV license and then heard nothing back. So thought, well, it's done.
Yeah.
And then sometime later, they receive a demand for payment plus arrears from the corporation's attorneys. Often, it's family members of those who've died or emigrated who are left trying to break them free from the SABC's clutches on their behalf. And as we said last week, briefly, there are those, and they're quite vocal on social media, who've just decided that they are going to pay the annual fee of 265 Rand, despite having long parted ways with the TV in question and the home it used to be in. Because they regard it as a fair price to pay once a year for not having to deal with the SABC or its debt collectors and to avoid blacklisting.
And as I said last week, Wendy, it's a terribly defeatist thing to do, but you can totally understand how a customer gets to that point of just going, it's not worth the effort. I'll just pay it and be done with it. But it is defeatist, and customers shouldn't have to go to those lengths to get out of this. So
exactly.
Remind us what happened last time. I mean, as you said, we spoke about this in November last year. You did reach out to the SABC to try and get some clarity on what exactly do you want us to do. It was quite difficult, if I remember.
It left me in quite a predicament, Pippa, if you recall, because I gave ample time for a response. I'd asked for exact detail on how you cancel your TV license with, whatever your various scenarios are. So you've separated from your partner and you've moved on, you've immigrated, you've sold your TV set or you've donated it to somebody. It was stolen, it was repossessed, whatever. There are legion of reasons. And I really was just looking for explicit detail because that's what people need and cannot find on the TV license website under FAQ. It's digitally there's no limit to the amount of information you could put on there and no limit to the number of times that you can change it. This is not a published book or pamphlet, right? You think the modern era and digital communication lends itself to be as detailed and as up to date as can be, but no.
And to cover as many scenarios. So
that's what I'm saying.
We've not had this one before. Let's add that to the list.
Exactly.
Yeah,
in everyone's best interest. But anyway, so what happened was, by the time we went to air with that November show, I had been bounced around between various people in various divisions, but I hadn't received a response to my questions. I'd said, please answer these questions, and we invite somebody to come and join us on air. And 20 minutes before we went on air, the manager of media relations emailed me to say that the head of TV licenses was available the following day. So I only saw that actually after the show, I think. And at which time I pointed out that it was a day too late and suggested that the head of TV licenses join us on air the following Wednesday to do a follow-up to that show, which we had to go ahead with anyway and air everybody's issues because it was, it was among the things we covered. And the response I got from him was, apologies for the mix-up, we'll revert ASAP. That didn't happen, so I sent another email. And I still never got a response. And I must confess, it's a terrible confession, but I was worn out. Worn down. They won. SABC won, Wendy Knowler 0. And I moved on to other pressing issues of which there's no shortage.
Yeah. But then a fresh complaint more recently from a different listener reminded us that this was an issue we'd never actually fully resolved. So we went back, Wendy picked up the cudgels again, and you took up the battle on behalf of Rochelle. Just briefly remind us what Rochelle told you.
Rochelle's email was very short and not so sweet. My best friend recently immigrated and has all the documentation confirming her cancellation, but is still being asked to pay the license. Any suggestions? Contacts I can use to try and get this sorted out once and for all. Call centers have been contacted, emails sent, and yet still the notice for payment still arrives. Sigh, which I think that last word sums it all up.
Yeah.
So, of course, the most consumer-friendly thing, as you said, for the SABC to do would be to pop on its website a really comprehensive list of FAQs covering every possible TV license cancellation scenario and exactly how someone can go about submitting that cancellation, how to present it, where to send it, etc. But it's not what they've done. In a recent report published in My Broadband, a staff writer summed it up by saying, "My experience showed that it is basically impossible to follow the government's suggestions and receive assistance from the SABC to cancel a TV license."
So you went back to them, Wendy.
Yes.
Okay, so the scenario, as people are telling us, we've tried again. Nothing seems to work. What can we do? You went back to the media division of the SABC and said to them, we've looked at the website, we've looked at the frequently asked questions. There is not the kind of clarity that we are needing, and what to do. So
and big gaps.
Yeah.
Yes, I also wanted to know if a TV license holder sends the SABC notification of changes of ownership or cancellation of intention to cancel the TV license, if it's sent to the wrong email address or the wrong platform, or it doesn't contain all the necessary documentation, does the SABC notify them of this, or simply just hand them over for collection, having deemed the license fee to still be payable because they didn't accept the form, the content of the cancellation, which I think is a very important question. So I did get an answer. So also, the site instructs license holders to inform the SABC of their changed circumstances via, and I'm quoting, a prescribed form, in brackets affidavit, but they don't say where to find that form, or better still, provide a link to it, right? Which would be the easiest thing and the easiest, which digital platforms allow. And I asked why not. And then another example of, let's make this as hard as possible, is on the website under cancellation. They write, all notices to the SABC must be in writing and addressed to the manager, television licenses, private bank, so-and-so, Auckland Park, or by free post, or by fax email to the numbers addresses on the SABC TV license correspondent. Now, I mean,
fax in 2022.
Exactly.
They want a fax.
And if there's an email address, put it there.
Don't say look on the
look
form.
on the letterhead.
Put it on the website.
Put it there so where people are going to look for information. It's just, it can only be deliberately obstructionist. I'm sorry.
It's the most basic communication.
And that must have been there
oversight.
for 30 years. That particular, I would imagine. Anyway.
Okay, so you put all of that to them, saying,
yes.
Just long story short, how do you do it? Where do we find the information? You did get a response, Wendy, but not the kind of clarity you were hoping for.
No, so for starters, the attachment was addressed to Wendy Fowler, which was not encouraging.
Okay.
It's actually not. You would be surprised how many people call me that. And so here's what I can share as a result of all of that. The SABC says it doesn't cover all the cancellation scenarios on the website FAQs because there are too many to mention.
Really?
Really? On a website, digital website. License holders who submit cancellations will be provided with the necessary information in relation to the specific reason for cancelling a TV license.
How?
Yes.
How?
They're saying, well, presumably they will respond. But, I mean, that creates more work for everybody.
It's
and it's nonsensical. Yes,
it's just nonsensical.
Exactly.
Okay.
As to whether they respond, if the cancellation and the way it was written and the information it provided and the platform it was sent to, if it doesn't tick the boxes, will they consider the license to be uncancelled, in other words, still valid, or will and hand them over if they don't pay? The answer to that was the SABC responds adequately to cancellation requests by providing the license holder with the necessary requirements for cancellation or additional information that is still required. Should the license holder not respond, the account is not cancelled and the debt remains outstanding. As for the mystery prescribed form, I said, what is that exactly and where can I find it? The FAQ states prescribed form in brackets affidavit. This is a clear indication that an affidavit is required to cancel a TV license account. I promise you.
It's quite unfathomable communication. Wendy, long story short, though, we have managed to get our hands on a copy of the actual structured affidavit that they recommend.
To quote them, for the record, the form is obtainable from the SABC upon request and can be accessed from the TV licenses regulations in the Government Gazette of 2004.
I mean, how ridiculous. So instead of just putting a link on your own page, you send us to the Government Gazette.
Or giving me the link, or, because I've asked for it and I've been quite dogged about it. However, the SABC does accept a commissioned affidavit which provides the necessary information to cancel an account. And the thing about their own form, though, is that you don't have to have any guesswork around it. That form will tell you the information
That
they
is
require.
needed,
So you know
yeah.
you're not going, right. Anyway, they don't see fit to put it on their site, as we've said. So I went to them and said, look, in 2015, 7 years ago, Business Tech published a story about it being impossible to cancel your TV license. And they've said, they actually said that you need a signed affidavit, not just any affidavit, one specifically from the SABC, which they've now, because they did say to me a signed affidavit is
So
acceptable.
okay, it doesn't
But
have to be their
anyway,
own
they
version
published
anymore.
the form, which I shared with you, and I've got it. If anyone wants it, we can maybe put it on the podcast, but I have it. And I said to them, is any information in the Business Tech story of 7 years ago incorrect? They've said no, and they've confirmed that that is the form. So I think that's the easiest thing to do, is to go by their prescribed form. And you can email it to tvlic.info@sabc.co.za.
Okay, so we've got a copy of this form. So
We
I have saved
do.
it to my computer. If anybody wants it, you're welcome
I've
to
also
email
done
me
that.
on pippa@capetalk.co.za and I will send it to you. Wendy, I mean, the kind of information it's asking for, it's I, so-and-so, do hereby make oath and solemnly declare that I've not been in possession of my TV set since, and you need to give
Yes.
the date. And then there's a facility to explain whether it was sold, donated, given away, stolen, permanently out of order, etc. Signature of the license holder, etc. So, and sworn and stamped by the relevant commissioner of oath. So it is the form that they have said is adequate, which is the most important thing.
So I think
Okay.
that's the best thing to do. Others, such as Andy of Musenberg, have gone it alone and eventually got it right. She, after our show last week, when we mentioned we'd be doing this, going into more detail this week, she said that she used her own affidavit and she wrote, this serves to confirm that I, and she gave her full name, TV license, am no longer in possession of a TV set and therefore no longer liable for a license. The last TV set I purchased was in 2001. It was a tube TV and therefore no longer usable due to digital migration. I've disposed of it and will not be replacing it. She still continues to get their final notice. Their first notice is always the final notice, and then you just get a succession of final notices after that. And finally, after, I think she said it was 6 months, yes, after 6 months of this, she received confirmation that her TV license account had finally been cancelled and closed.
So importantly, she submitted the affidavit. When they carried on sending her notices, she
resubmitted
replied
it.
attaching that
Yes.
affidavit saying, please see the attached. And
Yes.
she kept on doing that for another 6 months before finally she received a notice that it was cancelled. Somebody else's WhatsApp to say, I needed a police stamped affidavit to cancel my TV license. It seemed to work. I eventually got a confirmation later from the SABC.
Yes, I think she
did the same.
Andy did go to the police
Yeah.
station and do all that. I just think I would be more comfortable doing it with the form that the SABC itself drew up. Because then I'd know I'm giving them all the information that they want.
And as you said, I mean, just absolute communication 101, Wendy, that surely your starting point is attached. Well, herewith is the link to the template form to use.
We can surmise
Yeah.
as to why they don't do that.
Well, exactly. The fact that they haven't done it is because they don't want you to be able to do it, is the bottom line. Thank you. Anna also saying, I had to provide them with an affidavit certified by a commissioner of oath that I no longer owned a TV set and that all previous TV sets were broken and disposed of. I received an email confirming my license was cancelled and I no longer am required to subscribe. Okay, so that's Anna, Andy, and one other saying that it worked. Here's somebody saying, my father-in-law cancelled the TV license in my wife's name in 2010, still got claims to them via SMS. We have a license in our married capacity. The lawyer says ignore it as their claim would not hold up in court, which is one strategy, to simply just throw it in the bin. But of course, that has potential ramifications
There's
if they
the
choose to hand you
blacklisting
over.
thing,
Yeah.
and we talk about prescription a lot on this show. Well,
This
normal
doesn't
debts,
prescribe.
It does
Yeah.
prescribe, but after 30 years.
Oh, 30 years.
So your
Okay.
normal retail debts are 3 years. State-related debts, including TV license debt, is only prescribes after 30 years. It's a long time for them to make your life uncomfortable.
And it's just that constant niggle of,
Yes,
I mean, nobody likes
exactly.
receiving that document.
Exactly.
You
If
know,
you're-
funny that you know you don't own. Yeah. Okay, so I've already got 3 requests for the form coming through in my email box. Michelle, Neil, and Tracy, I will reply after the show today. I promise I will get it to you. I have got it saved, and we'll get the form through to you. And anybody else who wants it, okay. Either you can go to the Government Gazette. I can give you the
Yes,
Gazette
yeah.
number if you want it, but easier still to just to email me and I'll send it through to
Yes.
you. Okay, and we will.
Well
I've
done
asked
you.
my producer to please post it along with the podcast
That
of
would
today's segment
be great.
as well. Okay, my
Publish Netflix
screen is
service
turning
extraordinary.
over. Okay, it's going to be a long evening replying to mails. I can see. Okay.
Lunch with Pippa Hudson.
On Cape Talk.